You're trying to make something of your life. But when things don't go as planned, you get stressed out and you're not the best version of yourself. And the harder you try to push those feelings away, the worse it gets. In this video, you'll find out how to pull yourself out of that stressful state and into a calm state, even when life is chaos. Quick note, this video is part of a series, so if you want to become a ninja at regulating your nervous system, feel free to start with episode 1 and 2 before you watch this one. All right, let's jump in. Imagine you're sitting at home. Everything is fine, but then the smoke alarm goes off. If you've never thought about what to do in that moment, your nervous system could easily just jump straight into threat mode. A worst case scenario would automatically flash before your eyes and you would freeze, or maybe you would panic. Why? Because your brain has no clear next step. But what if it did? What if you already knew? Oh, okay, I'm hearing the smoke alarm. First, I'll check the batteries. Then I'll check the oven and the stove. And only after that will I see if I can find any smoke in the house. That would change everything for your nervous system. Because when the alarm sounds, your brain doesn't have to decide from scratch whether this is a life or death situation. It has a protocol for it. It just searches in the archives, it finds the file for it, and then it'll know, okay, alarm means step 1, step 2, and step 3. All of this is better than when your brain finds no file for it. Because then it'll just be, okay, alarm means I have no idea what's going on. It's unknown, means danger. In both cases, the alarm would still be real, right? But when you have a protocol for it, you'll still be able to think clearly. It keeps your amygdala, the crisis center of your brain, it'll keep it from taking over the thinking part of your brain. The part that you need the most in a situation like this, the ability to think clearly. Here's a bit more about how your nervous system works. When you're in autopilot, like in the morning, when you're putting on your socks, you don't have to think about it, right? I hope you don't have to think about it. When you're making your morning tea, for example, all of these situations are very predictable to your brain. But when your brain can't predict what's coming next, you'll notice that the tension in your body rises. Why is that? Because your brain defaults to the safest assumption. Unknown means danger. And that's the stress response kicking in. You can have two different people looking at the same exact situation, but one person could totally freak out and the other person could stay calm through the same situation. Why is that? Because the person that freaks out doesn't have a file for it, and the person who stays calm does. The chaos is the same in both situations. When you have a file for it, a protocol, the chaos isn't unfamiliar any longer. It isn't unknown. Unfamiliar chaos is a nightmare to your nervous system. But familiar chaos, it can work with that. Your nervous system responds more to the unfamiliarity of the situation than the situation itself. So this begs the question, how can you create a protocol for your stressful situation, right? And this is where this great tool comes in, a tool that is often overlooked. CTFAR is you building those protocols ahead of time. So when life throws something at you, your brain doesn't have to start from scratch like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do with this situation? No, it already knows what to do next. And trust me, it'll feel like such a relief when you encounter a stressful situation and you already know what the next step is. You will literally feel that relief in your body. I'll give you an example in a minute, but first let me zoom in on something important. Because here's the thing with protocols. You don't just start practicing a protocol when you already need it. It would be a bit late to start practicing a protocol when your flight is already crashing down, for example. That wouldn't be very smart. I know you're very smart. So here's what you can do to become a ninja at regulating your emotions. You practice protocols in quiet moment. Right after you realize that you've been in a stressful situation and you didn't know what to do, you go somewhere where you can be alone for a couple of minutes and you make the CTFAR. If you do this after every stressful moment you encounter, you will get so good at your protocols that you will be able to stay calm in any chaos. A CTFAR is your tailor-made protocol. Think back to a chaotic moment in your life. Remember how it can just feel so chaotic, all the emotions, you're feeling and all the thoughts going through your mind. You don't know what's up or down. A CTFAR interrupts that chaos. All these complex things that are all intertwined, it'll create overview and it'll help you show what's actually happening. It'll help you respond instead of react. Let me show you. CTFAR stands for circumstance, thought, feeling, action, and results. A circumstance could be, for example, that you receive a critical email from your boss. Circumstances are always neutral, which means that anybody on earth should be able to agree with it. Most of us think that it's the circumstances that give us the stress. But in reality, it is our thoughts about the circumstance that give us the stress. A thought could be, for example, oh, this means that I'm going to get fired. That's not a fact. You decide what the circumstance means by the thought you choose to have about it. In this case, it's not the email that caused the panic, it's the thought that did. So from this feeling, you act. Since we're talking about a stressful situation here, this action could be fighting, it could be flight, right? It could be freezing or pleasing. We're going to talk a bit more about that in a second. The actions that you undertake will create a specific result for you. And what we often see happening is that our results are proof of our own worst thoughts. I love making CTFARs with my clients, but also for myself, because it does one thing so well. It uncovers the stressful patterns in your life. So if you're ready for it, let's look at a CTFAR, okay? I'll take an example out of my own life from a while ago. As you remember, the circumstance has to be objective, so everybody has to be able to agree with it. So that wouldn't be it's bad weather in the Netherlands, because maybe some people love the weather in the Netherlands, you see? So my situation was that someone asked me to arrange a group visit with people in my network and then canceled right when we were about to leave. I'm not writing down my fear about it. I'm not writing down my opinion about it, just the circumstance. So right after this situation, I noticed that my thought was, what will they think? What will they think of me? What will they think of her? These people probably made a lot of preparations already, and I felt really uneasy about that, I didn't want to let them down. After that, you look at the feelings, right? So in order to look at the feelings, what I always do is I grab an emotion wheel and I list all the things that I'm feeling in that moment. In this situation, I felt anxious and worried because I felt like I wanted to make things right, but I also felt like I didn't have any time to make it right because I was already late. I should have left 10 minutes ago. That also made me feel overwhelmed. But as I looked further on the emotion wheel, I also noticed that I had some anger in there. I felt let down by her, you see? And I also felt frustrated, like I was trying to make everything right, and then I get a problem thrown in my lap, and that didn't feel right. And then I also felt desperate. Like I said, there was no time left, and I wanted to fix it. I felt like I had to fix it. Despair, all of these emotions, wow. Can you imagine I felt stressed? From these feelings came actions. So what were my actions in that moment? I thought really, really hard how to solve this problem for everyone without letting anyone down. Especially that last part, without letting anyone down. That was a key thing here. And the result is I thought of everyone's feelings but my own. I felt stressed all throughout the process of trying to find a solution. And the last thing was that because of all the stress hormones rushing through my body and, occupying my thinking brain, I couldn't come to a good conclusion. I couldn't find the right solution in this situation, which would make us arrive even later. The one thing that I wanted to prevent. Were we still to go? So when you make your own CTFAR and you get to this point, you will notice that you'll already have less stress going through your body at that point, because the CTFAR makes your nervous system feel heard. Like I said, you're no longer looking at a knot with 50 threads all intertwined together, but you are looking at everything clearly laid out step by step so you can see precisely where things go wrong. After I did this, I clearly saw what my reaction was, where the stress came from. And this alone brings calm to your nervous system. But it gets even better, because next you start writing the protocol. And the way to do it is by making another CTFAR, but this time you deliberately choose your response. The first step is to try and find a good, helpful thought. I'll admit that this is a bit hard in the beginning, because you haven't made these paths in your brain before. So it takes a bit of creativity. If it helps, you can also ask somebody else you trust to think along with you. Sometimes it can help you think outside the box and override your programming. The helpful thought I came up with was, what do I think about this whole situation? Honestly, it never even crossed my mind. What do I think of them? What do I think about their actions? This is a great helpful thought for people pleasers, for fawners. It's a protocol that'll help in many stressful situations. I immediately noticed that when I chose that helpful thought, feelings came up that were actually quite pleasant. I felt respected. I felt valued by myself because I mattered too. But I also felt courageous and powerful because I was being empowered to take charge of my own situation. I even felt successful. I didn't see that coming, but in the end I realized why. Because I realized that my action could be, for starters, to let her know how she had made me feel, to let her know in what situation she had put me by her actions. A very complicated situation, even though she had her reasons for it. In this whole process, I also noticed that more and more stress hormones in my body were being broken down. And I got back more of my ability to think, to plan, to problem solve, right? Prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that does all those things that you can hardly access when you're high on stress. So the result of that was that I could find a good solution. Research, by the way, shows that you can even lose up to 15 IQ points when you're in a stressed state. That's crazy, right? The solution was that the person that canceled stayed home to get her rest, but that the rest of us still went to the outing. We got a nice outing, we enjoyed ourselves, she got some rest, everybody sort of got what they wanted. I practiced this protocol until it became automatic. And if you're a people pleaser, you can also get to a state where your brain will automatically think, okay, but what do I think about this? And you know what? There are so many tailor-made protocols for you that are ready to be discovered. So that's it. Next time you notice that emotions are making you feel uneasy, or you notice the tension is rising in your body, make a CTFAR. The more you do it, the easier it'll become to find the right helpful thought and regulate your nervous system and reactivate your thinking brain. You won't react and feel stressed doing it, but you will respond and stay in control. And that's what your nervous system loves, to be in control. Because when it's in control, it feels safe and it can stay calm, even in the chaos. This was our series about staying calm in the chaos. I hope it helped you out. If there's any other things you would like to know about overcoming stress, drop your question in the comments. And for now, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.